The autumn evening was cold and melancholic. Yellow leaves rustled as they fell from the trees, scattering across the forest floor like fragments of forgotten memories. The air carried a strange weight, a solemnity mixed with an unsettling quiet that made even the birds reluctant to sing. President Ibrahim Traoré walked alone through the hidden forest path, dressed in plain clothes without his security detail. This was his habit, his way of staying connected to reality. Despite being one of the most powerful leaders in his nation, he preferred to walk among the common paths, to feel the pulse of his land without the barrier of protocol and protection. That particular evening, his mind was heavy with the burdens of leadership, conspiracies, threats from enemies, the weight of an entire nation's hopes resting on his shoulders. All of it pressed down on him like an invisible force. The dense trees of the old forest surrounded him, their branches creating patterns of shadow and light as the dying sun filtered through. Suddenly, a sound broke through his thoughts. It was faint at first, barely audible over the rustling leaves, a soft whimpering like someone crying. Ibrahim stopped in his tracks. He was a trained soldier, a seasoned politician who had faced death countless times, yet in that moment, his heart beat with the simple concern of one human hearing another in distress. He followed the sound, his footsteps careful and measured. As he pushed through a cluster of low-hanging branches, the scene that unfolded before him froze him in place. A young woman, perhaps 20 years old, was chained to an ancient oak tree. She wore a tattered white wedding dress, now stained with mud and torn in several places. Her golden hair hung in disheveled strands around her dirt-streaked face. Her eyes, blue as a summer sky, were red from crying, and in them Ibrahim saw a terror so profound it made his blood run cold. Heavy iron chains bound her wrists to the tree, the metal already cutting into her pale skin. Ibrahim's military training kicked in immediately, but it was his humanity that moved him forward. He knelt beside her, his voice gentle despite his shock. "Who did this to you? Who chained you here?" The woman lifted her head slowly, exhaustion evident in every movement. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse and broken. "My name is Claire. I was abandoned here. Please, I beg you, help me get away from here." Ibrahim examined the chains carefully. The lock was old but sturdy, designed to keep someone imprisoned indefinitely. A wave of anger surged through him, anger at whoever could do this to another human being. But he forced his voice to remain calm and reassuring. "Don't worry. I'm going to get you out of here. Just stay calm. I'll be back in a few minutes with tools." Claire's eyes widened with fear. "You're coming back? You won't leave me here?" Ibrahim met her gaze steadily. "I gave you my word, didn't I? I never break my promises." He turned and moved quickly through the forest, his mind already calculating. His vehicle was parked about half a mile away, hidden on an old service road. In the trunk, he kept various tools and emergency supplies, a habit from his military days. Within minutes, he had retrieved a bolt cutter and was racing back through the darkening forest. "You came back," Claire whispered when she saw him, tears streaming down her face again, but this time, they were tears of relief. "I told you I would." Ibrahim positioned the bolt cutter on the chain. With one powerful motion, the metal gave way with a sharp crack. The chains fell away, clattering against the tree trunk. Claire immediately rubbed her wrists where the iron had bitten into her flesh, leaving angry red marks that would soon become bruises. Ibrahim gently took her arm to help her stand, and she swayed on unsteady legs. "How long have you been here?" he asked softly. "Since yesterday morning?" Her voice broke. "My fiancé. When he learned that I couldn't have children, he decided I was worthless. He brought me here, chained me up, and left me to die." A cold fury settled in Ibrahim's chest, but he kept his expression composed. A person's worth is not measured by their ability to bear children. Anyone who thinks otherwise is himself worthless. Claire looked at him with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Why are you helping me?" "You don't even know me." Ibrahim helped her walk, supporting her weight as they moved toward his vehicle. "My mother used to say that God often brings us to those who need us, and brings them to us when we need them. Perhaps you needed me today. And perhaps I needed you too." When they reached his vehicle, Claire's eyes fell on a bag in the back seat. It bore the emblem of a lion, the national symbol. Her eyes widened slightly, and she looked at Ibrahim with new curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. Ibrahim started the vehicle, his expression unreadable. "For now, I'm just someone taking you to safety. Time will reveal the rest." The vehicle moved steadily along the winding road, leaving the dark forest behind. Claire sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window but seeing nothing. Her body was free from the chains, but Ibrahim could sense that her mind and heart were still imprisoned by trauma and fear. "Have you eaten anything?" he asked gently. Claire shook her head. "Not since yesterday morning." Ibrahim changed direction, heading toward a small town where he knew there was an old but comfortable inn. He often stayed there during his unofficial visits to the countryside. It was far from the capital, away from prying eyes and political intrigue. The innkeeper, an elderly woman named Madame Kouassi, knew him only as Mr. Christophe, a businessman who occasionally passed through. When they arrived, Madame Kouassi asked no questions. She simply showed them to a clean room and sent up warm soup, bread, and tea. When the food arrived, Claire stared at it as if she couldn't quite believe it was real. Tears welled up in her eyes again. "You might think this is nothing special," she said, her voice trembling. "But to me, this is the greatest gift I could receive right now." Ibrahim watched her eat slowly, his expression thoughtful. "Life never truly ends until we give up. What happened to you was wrong, but you are not worthless. Do you understand that?" Claire looked at him properly for the first time, really looked at him. There was something extraordinary in his eyes, a depth of wisdom and compassion she had never seen before. This was no ordinary man, but she didn't have the courage to ask more questions. That night, Ibrahim stood by the window, staring out into the darkness. Claire gathered her courage and asked, "Who are you, really? There's something in your voice, in your eyes, a kind of strength I've never encountered before." Ibrahim smiled slightly. "I am someone who lives for his land and his people. Actions matter more than names." Claire fell silent, but a strange warmth began to grow in her heart, a feeling of safety she hadn't experienced in years. She wondered if fate had delivered her into the hands of an angel. The next morning, Ibrahim took her to a small clothing shop in town and bought her simple, practical clothes to replace the torn wedding dress. When Claire changed, she caught sight of herself in a mirror, and for a moment, she looked like a normal person again. She felt for the first time in days like she might actually be alive. Ibrahim then took her to visit a nearby village, where he met with local people. Claire observed how everyone treated him with deep respect, as if he were someone important, yet he remained humble and approachable. Her curiosity grew stronger. On the way back, she asked quietly, "Why are you doing all this for me? You don't know me. You owe me nothing." Ibrahim considered his answer carefully. "My father used to say that a person's true character is revealed when they help a stranger. Anyone can be kind to those they know. That's just self-interest. True goodness is helping someone from whom you expect nothing in return." Claire lowered her eyes, feeling something shift inside her. Her carefully constructed walls were beginning to crack. That afternoon, one of Ibrahim's trusted men approached him discreetly and handed him an envelope. Inside was a brief message. "Be cautious. Someone close to you may be working for the enemy." Ibrahim's blood ran cold. He glanced at Claire, who was playing with village children, looking innocent and happy. But the words of the warning echoed in his mind. As a leader, he had learned the hard way that trust must be earned and verified. He decided to keep Claire close but remain vigilant. When they returned to the inn, Ibrahim was quieter than usual. Claire noticed immediately. "You seem troubled," she said. Ibrahim looked at her thoughtfully. "Sometimes people come into our lives and we don't know if we can trust them. The heart and the mind go to war." Claire's chest tightened. She knew she was hiding something that could destroy the fragile connection forming between them. The truth was darker than anyone in that village could have imagined. Claire was not simply a discarded bride. She was a trained operative, deployed by a European intelligence agency with one mission: get close to Ibrahim Traoré, discover his weaknesses, and relay information back to her handlers. She had been placed in that forest deliberately. chained to that tree, knowing that Ibrahim often walked those paths. It was all calculated. The helpless victim, the wedding dress, even her tears had been part of the plan. But something had gone wrong, terribly, unexpectedly wrong. Claire had spent years being trained to suppress emotions, to see every human interaction as a tactical operation. She had been taught that feelings were weaknesses, that intimacy was just another tool for extraction of intelligence. Yet every hour she spent with Ibrahim was dismantling her carefully constructed defenses. That night, unable to sleep, Claire stood in her room, torn between duty and conscience. Through the thin walls, she could hear Ibrahim moving about in the next room. Curiosity drew her to peek through the slightly ajar door. Ibrahim was looking at a photograph, an old picture of an elderly woman and several children. Their faces showed hardship, but their eyes held hope. Ibrahim spoke softly to the photograph, as if the people in it could hear him. "I promised you all that I would fight for your rights. I will never let you be oppressed. I will give my life before I let this nation fall into chains again." Claire felt her heart crack. This was not the dangerous dictator her agency had described. This was not a tyrant drunk on power. This was a man who loved his people, who carried their burdens as his own. Everything she had been told was a lie. She quietly returned to her room, her mind spinning. The mission suddenly felt like a betrayal, not of her agency, but of something far more fundamental, of truth itself. The next morning, Ibrahim sent a coded message to his security team. "The woman is safe for now, but maintain surveillance. Trust, but verify." Meanwhile, Claire had made a decision. She would stay close to Ibrahim, but not to spy on him. She would stay because for the first time in her life, she wanted to be near someone not out of duty, but out of genuine respect and growing affection. She began helping around the village, cooking with the women, playing with children, assisting in the fields. The villagers, initially suspicious of the foreign woman, gradually warmed to her. They saw that her actions were genuine, that she worked alongside them without complaint. Ibrahim observed all of this from a distance. He had to admit that if Claire was an enemy agent, she was playing her role remarkably well. But a small voice in the back of his mind wondered, what if she wasn't playing a role at all? One evening, Claire approached Ibrahim as he sat reviewing documents by lamplight. "Can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. "Of course." "If someone betrayed you, what would you do?" Ibrahim set down his papers and looked at her directly. "I would be angry. I might even punish them depending on the betrayal." He paused. "But if I sensed that the betrayal came from a place of desperation or coercion, I would try to understand first. Every person has a story. Sometimes we do wrong things for complex reasons." His words were like knives in Claire's heart. She wanted to confess everything, to throw herself on his mercy, but fear held her tongue. "Why do you ask?" Ibrahim inquired gently. "Just wondering about forgiveness, about whether some betrayals can ever be forgiven." Ibrahim studied her face. Forgiveness is possible when there's genuine remorse and a willingness to make amends, but it requires honesty above all else. That night, Claire wept in her room. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Her agency would soon demand a report. If she didn't provide intelligence, they would extract her, or worse, eliminate her as a compromised asset. But she could not, would not, betray Ibrahim. The next few days brought increasing tension. Unfamiliar vehicles were spotted near the village. Strange men were seen watching from the hills. Ibrahim's security team went on high alert. "General," one of his men reported, and it was the first time Claire heard him called by that title, "we've identified at least 5 foreign operatives in the area. They appear to be searching for something, or someone." Ibrahim's jaw tightened. He glanced at Claire, who had gone pale. She knew. Those were her people. That evening, Claire made her decision. She couldn't live the lie anymore. She found Ibrahim, standing on a hillside overlooking the village, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and red. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something that might make you hate me." Ibrahim turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I'm listening." Claire took a shaking breath. "I wasn't abandoned by a fiancé. There was no wedding. I'm an intelligence operative for a European agency. I was placed in that forest deliberately, as bait. My mission was to get close to you, to learn your weaknesses, to gather intelligence that could be used against you and your government." For a long moment, Ibrahim said nothing. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "I see," he finally said, his voice carefully neutral. "But something happened," Claire continued, tears now streaming down her face. "The more time I spent with you, the more I realized that everything I'd been told was a lie. You're not a tyrant. You're not a threat. You're a man who loves his people and fights for justice. I can't complete my mission. I won't, even if it costs me my life." Ibrahim turned back to look at the village below. "How do I know this isn't another layer of deception? How do I know you're not telling me this to gain my trust, to make me lower my guard?" "You don't," Claire admitted. "You have no reason to trust me. All I can do is swear to you on whatever honor I have left that I'm telling you the truth. I will give you all the intelligence codes my agency uses. I'll tell you everything I know about their operations. And if you still want to have me arrested or executed, I'll accept that judgment." Ibrahim was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "You've just made yourself an enemy of powerful people. They won't let you go easily. I know. They'll come for you, and they'll use force." "I know." Ibrahim turned to face her again. "Why? Why throw away everything, your career, your safety, possibly your life, for me? For people you barely know?" Claire met his eyes. "Because I've lived my whole life in the shadows, serving people who deal in lies and manipulation. I've done terrible things in the name of national security. But you showed me what it means to serve with integrity, to actually care about the people you're responsible for. You gave me back my humanity. How could I betray that?" For the first time since her confession, Ibrahim's expression softened. "This changes everything. You understand that?" "Yes. The villagers will need to know. My security team will need to know. You'll be under constant surveillance. I understand. And when your agency comes, and they will come, it will be dangerous for everyone. I'll leave if you want me to. I'll go somewhere far away, draw them away from here." "No." Ibrahim's voice was firm. "If you leave now, they'll hunt you down and kill you. Your only chance is to stay under my protection. But you need to prove your sincerity. Words are not enough." Claire nodded. "Tell me what I need to do." Over the following days, Claire provided Ibrahim's intelligence team with everything she knew: encryption codes, communication protocols, the identities of other assets in the region, and the structure of the agency's operations in West Africa. Every piece of information she shared was verified and found to be accurate, but verification came at a cost. The agency now knew for certain that Claire had turned, and they were coming. Late one night, the village was awakened by the sound of vehicles approaching. 5 black SUVs rolled to a stop at the village entrance, and armed men in tactical gear emerged. Their leader, a cold-eyed man Claire recognized as Director Morrison, called out through a megaphone. "We know you have our operative. Send her out, or this village will suffer the consequences." Ibrahim walked calmly to face them, unarmed but flanked by his personal guards. Claire tried to follow, but one of the villagers held her back. "You have no authority here," Ibrahim called out. "This is sovereign territory. Leave immediately." Morrison laughed harshly. "We're taking our asset back, with or without your cooperation. She's our property." "She's a human being," Ibrahim replied, his voice hard as steel. "And under my protection. You will not take her." Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? Morrison snarled. We can destroy you. One phone call and your entire government could face sanctions, embargoes, international isolation. Ibrahim stood his ground. Power isn't just about weapons and money. True power comes from the loyalty of the people, and that's something you can never buy or threaten into existence. The standoff grew tenser. Morrison's men raised their weapons. Ibrahim's guards did the same. One wrong move and there would be a bloodbath. Then Claire stepped forward, pushing past those who tried to hold her back. "Stop!" she shouted. "If you want me, then talk to me directly. But know this, I've made my choice. I'm not your operative anymore. Ibrahim is not my enemy. He's—" She paused, then spoke the truth that had been growing in her heart. "He's everything I should have been fighting for all along." Morrison's face contorted with rage. "You took an oath, Claire. Your life belongs to the agency." "I took an oath," Claire said, her voice steady despite her fear. "But my conscience belongs to me. I won't live as a tool for powerful people who destroy lives in the name of interests I don't believe in anymore. I've seen what real leadership looks like, what real integrity looks like, and it's not you." "You're signing your death warrant," Morrison hissed. "Perhaps," Claire replied, "but I'd rather die with honor than live as a liar." Ibrahim placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed. "She's made her choice. Now make yours. Leave peacefully, or face the consequences of violating our sovereignty." For a tense moment, it seemed Morrison might order his men to open fire, but he realized that doing so would create an international incident that even his powerful agency couldn't cover up. With a look of pure hatred, he signaled his men to withdraw. "This isn't over," he warned as they retreated to their vehicles. "You've both made powerful enemies today." "We've been living with powerful enemies," Ibrahim replied calmly. "One more doesn't frighten us." As the vehicles disappeared into the night, Claire's legs gave out. She sank to her knees, trembling with the aftermath of adrenaline and fear. Ibrahim knelt beside her. "You did well," he said quietly. "You showed more courage than most soldiers I've known." "I was terrified," Claire admitted. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting rightly despite fear." He helped her to her feet. "But this was just the beginning. They'll be back, and next time they won't announce themselves." In the days that followed, Claire threw herself into village life with renewed purpose. She worked in the fields alongside the women, helped teach children in the small school, and learned the local language. Gradually, suspicion turned to acceptance, and acceptance turned to genuine friendship. The village women, initially wary of this foreign woman with secrets, began to see her differently. She didn't complain about the hard work. She laughed at their jokes even when she didn't fully understand them. She wept with them when they shared their sorrows. She was becoming one of them. Ibrahim observed this transformation with a mixture of hope and caution. He wanted to believe in Claire's redemption, but the leader in him couldn't afford to be naive. He assigned one of his most trusted guards, a man named Kofi, to watch her discreetly. "What do you see?" Ibrahim asked Kofi after 2 weeks. "If she's acting, sir, she's the best actress I've ever seen," Kofi replied honestly. "She gave medical care to a sick child last night, sitting up with the mother until dawn. She didn't know anyone was watching. There was no one to perform for. She just cared." Ibrahim nodded slowly. "Keep watching, but perhaps with less suspicion and more protection. If her former colleagues return, she'll be the primary target." One afternoon, Claire was at the village school when a group of children surrounded her, asking her to tell them stories about the world beyond their village. She found herself describing cities and technologies, but also talking about loneliness and disconnection, about how people could be surrounded by millions and still feel utterly alone. "Is that why you came here?" one bright-eyed girl asked. "Because you were lonely?" Claire paused, considering the question seriously. "I came here as a lie," she said honestly. She had promised herself no more deception. "But I stayed because I found something true. I found people who welcomed me even though I was a stranger. I found a leader who lives what he preaches. I found a home." Ibrahim, passing by outside, heard these words. They struck something deep in his chest, a realization that perhaps redemption really was possible. That people could change. That grace could triumph over suspicion. That evening, he invited Claire to walk with him through the village. "You've changed," he observed. "I've been allowed to change," Claire corrected. "You gave me that chance. Most people wouldn't have." "I almost didn't," Ibrahim admitted. "When you first told me who you really were, my advisors urged me to have you arrested immediately. Some argued for execution." Claire stopped walking. "Why didn't you?" Ibrahim was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother used to tell me a story about a scorpion and a dove. The scorpion asked the dove for a ride across a river, promising not to sting. The dove refused, saying, 'It's your nature to sting.' But the scorpion replied, 'If I sting you mid-river, we'll both drown. It would be against my interest.' So the dove agreed. Halfway across, the scorpion stung the dove. As they both began to sink, the dove asked, 'Why?' 'Now we both die.' The scorpion replied, 'I couldn't help it. It's my nature.'" Claire listened, unsure where this was going. "For years, I believed people couldn't change their nature," Ibrahim continued. "But then I met people who proved me wrong. A former child soldier who became a teacher, a corrupt official who found conscience and became a whistleblower, a woman who was sent to betray me but chose honor instead." He looked at Claire directly. "You're changing your nature. That's the hardest thing any person can do." "I'm trying," Claire said softly, "but I'm afraid. What if I'm not strong enough? What if, when they come back, I falter?" "Then we face it together," Ibrahim said simply. "That's what community means. You're not alone anymore." 3 weeks after Morrison's departure, the attack came without warning. It was just before dawn when the explosions ripped through the village's eastern edge. Buildings erupted in flames. Screaming filled the air as people ran from their homes. Ibrahim was already moving, shouting orders, organizing the defense. But this wasn't a small team of intelligence operatives. This was a full mercenary force, heavily armed and coordinated. Claire found herself in the chaos, helping to evacuate children to the underground shelter that had been prepared for such emergencies. Kofi grabbed her arm as she was leading a group of kids. "The general wants you in the command center. Now." "But the children—" "Others will handle the children. You're the target. If they capture you, they'll use you as leverage." Claire understood. She ran with Kofi through the smoke and confusion to the reinforced building at the village center where Ibrahim was coordinating the defense. "They're hitting us from 3 sides," one of Ibrahim's commanders was reporting. "Heavy weapons, professional soldiers." "This isn't an arrest team, it's an execution squad." Ibrahim's face was grim. "They've decided that letting us live is too dangerous. They want to eliminate both the problem asset and the leader who protected her." He turned to Claire. "I need you to do something difficult. I need you to trust me completely. What do you need?" "I need you to let them see you." "To draw them in." Claire's eyes widened. "You want to use me as bait?" "I want to use their obsession with eliminating you as a tactical advantage. But it will put you in extreme danger." Claire took a deep breath, then nodded. "Tell me what to do." The plan was risky. Claire would position herself on the roof of a partially destroyed building, visible to the attacking force. When they concentrated their forces to capture or kill her, Ibrahim's fighters would hit them from behind, cutting them off. As Claire climbed to her position, her hands shook. She could hear bullets striking the walls around her. The smell of smoke and cordite filled her lungs. Below, she could see the mercenaries advancing methodically through the village. Then she saw Morrison himself, directing the assault from an armored vehicle. He was shouting into a radio, pointing toward different positions. When he spotted Claire on the rooftop, his face lit up with savage satisfaction. "There!" he shouted. "The traitor!" "All units converge on that position. I want her alive if possible, but dead will do." As Morrison's forces shifted their focus, rushing toward Claire's building, she felt a strange calm settle over her. She had spent her whole life in the shadows, lying and manipulating. If she died here, at least it would be standing in the light, fighting for something real. But she didn't die. At least, not yet. Just as the mercenaries reached the building, Ibrahim's counterattack hit them from 3 directions. The attackers found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. Morrison's carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. Claire scrambled down from the roof as the building began to collapse from sustained fire. She made it to the ground floor when she saw a mercenary corner one of the village women and her young daughter. Without thinking, Claire grabbed a fallen rifle and fired, dropping the mercenary before he could harm them. The woman stared at Claire in shock, then grabbed her daughter and ran. But the moment cost Claire. A second mercenary emerged from the smoke and hit her hard across the face with his weapon. She fell, tasting blood. "Got the target," the mercenary said into his radio. "Northeast quadrant. Requesting extraction." As he reached down to grab Claire, a single shot rang out. The mercenary collapsed. Ibrahim stood in the doorway, his rifle still raised. "Can you move?" he asked Claire. "I think so." She struggled to her feet, dizzy from the blow. "Then run. Back to the command center, now!" They ran together through the burning village. All around them, the battle raged. Ibrahim's forces were holding, but barely. The mercenaries had superior equipment and training. Back in the command center, Ibrahim's second-in-command reported grimly, "We're losing too many people. If this continues, we'll have to retreat into the forest." "No," Ibrahim said firmly. "If we retreat, they'll pursue us. The villagers will be left defenseless. We hold this ground." "Then we need something to break their assault," the commander said. "Something unexpected." Claire, nursing her split lip, suddenly spoke up. "I know their communication frequencies and their command protocols. I can jam their radios, make them think they're receiving retreat orders from Morrison." Ibrahim looked at her sharply. "Can you do it from here?" "If you have the right equipment. It's not sophisticated technology, just knowledge of their specific codes." Within minutes, Claire was at a radio transmitter, her fingers flying over the controls as she worked to hack into the mercenary communication network. Years of training, intended to make her a better spy, were now being turned against her former employers. "Got it," she said finally. "I'm in their network. Give me Morrison's voice signature and I can fake his commands." One of Ibrahim's intelligence officers had been recording the battle communications. He isolated Morrison's voice patterns and fed them into a voice modulation program. It wasn't perfect, but in the chaos of battle, it might work. Claire took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone, the software distorting her voice to match Morrison's. "All units, this is command. Operation compromised. Enemy reinforcements inbound. Execute tactical withdrawal to Rally Point Delta. I repeat, tactical withdrawal to Rally Point Delta." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the intensity of the attack began to diminish. The mercenaries, trained to follow orders without question, began pulling back. Morrison, watching from his command vehicle, was screaming into his radio, "No! I gave no such order! All units, disregard previous transmission. Maintain assault!" But the confusion had already taken hold. Some units were withdrawing while others were pushing forward. The coordinated attack had become a disorganized mess. Ibrahim seized the opportunity, launching a fierce counterattack that sent the mercenaries into full retreat. By the time the sun rose fully, the battle was over. The mercenaries had withdrawn, leaving behind damaged equipment and several captured men. Morrison himself had escaped, but his force had been shattered. The village was in ruins. Buildings had been destroyed, crops burned. Worst of all, 12 people had died in the fighting, including 3 children. The victory, such as it was, tasted like ashes. Claire worked through the day alongside the other survivors, tending to the wounded, helping to put out fires, comforting those who had lost family members. Her hands were covered in soot and blood by evening. Her body ached. But she kept working. An elderly woman whose husband had died in the attack approached Claire. Claire braced herself for anger, for accusation. After all, the attack had come because of her. But the woman simply took Claire's hand and said, "Thank you for fighting for us. You could have run, but you stayed." Claire broke down crying, the stress and guilt and exhaustion all crashing over her at once. The woman held her, this foreign woman who had brought danger but also chosen to stand with them, and whispered words of comfort. That evening, Ibrahim called together the survivors. He stood in the center of the damaged village square, looking at the faces of his people, tired, grieving, but unbroken. "Today we paid a terrible price," he began. "We lost people we love. Our homes are damaged. But we are still here. We stood against those who wanted to crush us, and we survived." He gestured to Claire, who stood at the edge of the crowd, trying to be invisible. "This woman came to us as an enemy agent. She was sent to infiltrate, to betray, to destroy. But she chose a different path. She chose truth over lies. She chose us over her former masters. Today, she fought beside us. She saved lives. She is no longer our enemy. She is one of us." Some people nodded. Others looked uncertain. One man spoke up. "But they came because of her? My son died because of her?" Ibrahim nodded gravely. "Yes. They came hunting her. But consider this. They would have come eventually anyway. We were always a target because we refused to bow to foreign interference. At least now we know who our enemies are. At least now we have someone who knows their methods, their tactics. Claire's knowledge may save us in the next attack." "Will there be a next attack?" someone asked fearfully. "Probably," Ibrahim said honestly. "But each time we'll be more prepared. Each time we'll stand stronger, because we stand together." As the meeting dispersed, Claire found herself surrounded by a group of the village women. They didn't say much, but they included her in their circle as they organized the evening meal, assigned sleeping spaces in the undamaged buildings, and planned the next day's work. It was a quiet acceptance, but it meant everything. That night, Claire and Ibrahim sat on the steps of the damaged command center, too exhausted to sleep despite their weariness. "I never imagined it would be like this," Claire said quietly. "In the agency, we talked about acceptable losses and collateral damage, sterile words for destroyed lives. I never had to see the faces of the people hurt by my actions. Now I have to live with those faces every day." "That's what makes you different now," Ibrahim replied. "You see the humanity. You feel the weight of your choices." "Does the weight ever get lighter?" she asked. "Or do you just learn to carry it better?" "A bit of both, I think." Ibrahim stared up at the stars. "Every leader carries the ghosts of those they couldn't save. Every decision comes with costs. You learn to accept that you can't save everyone, but you still have to try to save as many as you can." "How do you do it?" Claire's voice was barely a whisper. "How do you carry so much responsibility without breaking?" Ibrahim was quiet for a long moment. "I remember why I started. I remember the faces of those who believed in me when I had nothing. And I remember that giving up would dishonor their faith in me." He looked at Claire. "You're carrying guilt now. That's good. It means you have a conscience. But don't let guilt paralyze you. Transform it into determination to do better." Claire nodded, absorbing his words. "I want to help rebuild. I want to make amends, even though I know I can never fully repay what I've cost these people." "Redemption isn't a debt that's paid off and forgotten," Ibrahim said. "It's a continuous choice to be better than you were. You're making that choice every day now. That's enough." Over the following months, the village slowly rebuilt. Claire became an integral part of the community. She used her medical training, a skill all field operatives possessed, to establish a small clinic. She helped design better security systems using her knowledge of intelligence operations. She taught the older children English and mathematics. But more than her skills, it was her presence that mattered. She was living proof that people could change, that enemies could become friends, that redemption was possible. One day, while working in the fields alongside the other women, Claire found herself humming a song, a local tune she'd learned from the children. The woman working beside her, who had lost her home in the attack, smiled. "You sound like one of us now," the woman said. "I am one of you now," Claire replied, and she meant it. Ibrahim watched this integration with quiet satisfaction, but he also remained vigilant. His intelligence network reported that the agency that had employed Claire was in disarray. Morrison had been demoted after the failed operation. and there was internal conflict about whether to attempt another strike or cut their losses. "They're wounded but not defeated," Ibrahim told his security council. "Wounded animals are often the most dangerous." His words proved prophetic. 6 months after the battle, new intelligence arrived. A different agency, one with even fewer scruples, had taken up the contract. They were planning not a military assault, but an assassination. A single sniper, a single bullet, aimed at Ibrahim during a public appearance. When Ibrahim shared this information with Claire, her face went pale. "They'll use the speech at the independence celebration," she said immediately. "Maximum crowd, maximum symbolic impact. You'll be on an open platform." "I can't cancel," Ibrahim said. "To do so would be to let them win. To show that their threats can change our behavior." "Then let me help plan your security," Claire insisted. "I know how these operations work. I can identify the likely positions, the escape routes, the backup plans." For the next 3 weeks, Claire worked intensively with Ibrahim's security team. She taught them to think like assassins, to identify vulnerabilities, to anticipate the unexpected. Some of the team members were initially resistant to taking advice from a former enemy agent, but her expertise was undeniable. The day of the independence celebration arrived. Thousands of people gathered in the capital city. Ibrahim stood on the platform, preparing to address his nation. Claire was positioned in the security command center, coordinating with spotters placed in every building with a sight line to the platform. "Sector 7, rooftop, east corner," one spotter reported. "Single individual with a long case." Claire's blood ran cold. "That's our sniper. All units converge on Sector 7. Execute extraction protocol for the general." But Ibrahim refused to leave the platform. "If I run now, they'll try again. And next time, innocent people might be in the crossfire." "We end this today. You can't," Claire started to argue. But Ibrahim had already cut the communication. On the rooftop, the sniper, a professional killer with dozens of successful eliminations, lined up his shot. His finger tightened on the trigger. But just as he fired, one of Ibrahim's team members, having rappelled from a higher building, crashed into him. The bullet went wide, striking the platform but missing Ibrahim by inches. The crowd erupted in chaos. Ibrahim's guards rushed him off the platform to safety. Within minutes, the would-be assassin was in custody. In the interrogation room, the sniper was professional and silent, refusing to answer any questions. Until Claire walked in. "Agent Claire Donovan," the sniper said, surprised. "I heard you'd gone native." "Didn't believe it." "Believe it," Claire said coldly. "And tell me who sent you, or the next few years in a West African prison will be very educational for you." The sniper laughed. "You think I'm afraid of prison? I've survived worse." "I'm sure you have," Claire agreed. "But you're thinking about this wrong. You're not protecting your employers. They've already written you off. You failed the mission. They won't try to extract you. You're disposable. But if you cooperate, we can work out a deal. Information for leniency." Over the next hour, Claire, using every interrogation technique she'd ever learned, extracted the information they needed. The contract had come through a private military company with ties to 3 different intelligence services, all of whom wanted Ibrahim eliminated because his incorruptible stance was disrupting their economic interests in the region. When she emerged from the interrogation, Ibrahim was waiting. "You got him to talk," Ibrahim said. "It wasn't a question. He was never loyal to his employers, just loyal to money. Once I convinced him the money wasn't coming, he had no reason to stay silent." "You were good at this," Ibrahim observed. "The spy game. Part of you still is." Claire met his eyes. "Yes, but now I use those skills for something worth protecting. That makes all the difference." The information from the captured assassin led to a wider investigation. Ibrahim's government began publicly exposing the foreign interference, bringing evidence before international courts. It was a diplomatic earthquake. Some powerful nations were embarrassed. Others were forced to cut ties with the exposed mercenary networks. But it also painted an even bigger target on Ibrahim's back and on Claire's. One evening, Claire received an encrypted message on an old communication device she'd thought was deactivated. It was from her former mentor at the agency, a woman named Catherine Reed who had recruited Claire years ago. The message was simple: "Meet me, alone One last conversation. You owe me that much. Claire showed the message to Ibrahim. It's a trap, he said immediately. Probably, Claire agreed. But Catherine trained me. She saved my life once in Prague. I do owe her a conversation, not if it gets you killed. Claire was quiet for a moment. What if it's not a trap? What if she's trying to defect too? What if there's useful intelligence? Ibrahim recognized the look in Claire's eyes. You're going to go no matter what I say, aren't you? I'll take precautions. Your team can provide overwatch. But yes, I need to do this. I need to close this chapter completely. The meeting was set for a cafe in a neutral city 3 countries away. Claire flew there with a security team shadowing her every move. She arrived at the cafe early, scanning for threats, identifying exits, checking for sniper positions, old habits that would never fully leave her. Catherine Reed arrived exactly on time. She was in her 50s, elegant and composed, looking more like a university professor than a spy master. She ordered tea and regarded Claire with a mixture of disappointment and curiosity. You look different, Catherine said. Healthier. Happier even. I am, Claire replied simply. They say you've completely betrayed everything I taught you, that you've gone over to the other side. There are no sides, Catherine. Just people. That's what I've learned. Catherine stirred her tea thoughtfully. I didn't come here to bring you back or to threaten you. I came to understand. You were my best student. I handpicked you, trained you, trusted you with the most sensitive operations. Why did you turn? Claire considered her answer carefully. Do you remember what you told me when I first joined? You said we were protecting freedom, defending democracy, stopping tyrants. And we were. Were we? Claire leaned forward. Or were we protecting corporate interests and political influence? When I was with Ibrahim Traoré, I saw what real leadership looks like. I saw a man who actually cared about his people, who fought corruption, who refused to sell out his nation for foreign approval. And we, the agency, wanted him eliminated because he wouldn't play along with our economic agenda. Catherine's expression remained neutral. Geopolitics is complicated, Claire. Sometimes difficult decisions, Claire interrupted, her voice sharp. That's what we always called it. Difficult decisions, acceptable losses, collateral damage. We had 100 euphemisms for destroying lives, but I've seen the faces of the people we hurt. I've held the children we orphaned. I've lived with the consequences of our difficult decisions. You're being naive, Catherine said, but there was less conviction in her voice. The world doesn't work the way you want it to. Maybe not, Claire admitted. But I can choose which side of history I want to be on. I choose to stand with people fighting for genuine freedom, not the corporate-friendly version we were selling. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost sad. I envy you in a way. You found something to believe in. I stopped believing in anything years ago. Now I just follow orders and collect my pension. It's not too late, Claire said. You could... No, Catherine shook her head. I'm too old, too compromised, too deep in the system. But you got out. Hold on to that. Whatever happens, hold on to that. Catherine stood, leaving money for the tea. They're not going to stop hunting you, you know. Even after I retire, even after Morrison is gone, there will always be someone who sees you as a loose end. I know, Claire said. But I'm not running anymore. I'm standing with people worth standing with. Catherine nodded slowly. Then I hope you're as good as I trained you to be. You're going to need every skill you have. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, Claire, I'm proud of you. Not for what you did for us, but for having the courage to leave. Then she was gone. Claire sat alone in the cafe for a few more minutes, processing the conversation. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation she'd expected. It was sadder, quieter. A farewell to a life she'd left behind. When she returned to Ibrahim's country, she felt lighter. The last thread connecting her to her old life had been cut. Time passed. A year, then 2. The village was fully rebuilt, better than before. Claire's clinic had expanded. The school had new buildings. Life had found a rhythm. And somewhere in that rhythm, Claire realized that what she felt for Ibrahim had evolved into something deeper than respect or gratitude. It was love, quiet, steady, undeniable. She didn't speak of it. Ibrahim was a president, a leader with enormous responsibilities. She was a former spy trying to atone for past sins. It seemed impossible, inappropriate even. But Ibrahim, too, had found himself thinking of Claire in ways that went beyond strategic partnership. He admired her transformation, her dedication, her unwavering commitment to the people. He had come to trust her completely. And more than trust, he had come to need her presence in ways that had nothing to do with security or intelligence. One evening, they were walking through the village market. Children ran up to greet them, vendors called out friendly greetings, and the air smelled of grilled meat and fresh bread. It felt for a moment like peace was not just possible but present. "Do you ever regret it?" Ibrahim asked suddenly. "Giving up your old life? You could have been anywhere in the world living comfortably, free of all this struggle." Claire smiled. "I was never free before. I was a tool, a weapon pointed at targets I never questioned. Here, I'm a person. I make my own choices. I know who I am." She paused. "Do you ever regret protecting me? The attacks, the danger, the diplomatic complications, all of that came because you chose to stand by a former enemy agent." Ibrahim stopped walking and turned to face her directly. "Claire, you are not an enemy. You haven't been for a long time. You're—" He struggled to find the right words. "You're essential. To this community. To our work." "To me?" Claire's heart raced. "Ibrahim, I know the complications," he said quickly. "I know what people would say. A president and a former foreign spy. It sounds like a scandal waiting to happen. But I don't care about scandal. I care about truth. And the truth is that I've fallen in love with you." Claire felt tears welling up. "I love you too. I have for months, but I was afraid to say it. Afraid you'd think I was trying to manipulate you, afraid of complicating your position." Ibrahim took her hands. "My position is complicated regardless. At least if I face those complications with you beside me, I'll be happy." They stood there in the market, oblivious to the curious stares and knowing smiles of the villagers, and kissed for the first time. It wasn't dramatic or theatrical. It was simple and true. Two people who had found each other through the most unlikely circumstances, choosing happiness despite all the reasons to remain apart. The news of their relationship spread quickly. Most people in the village were supportive. They had watched Claire's transformation firsthand and accepted her completely. But in the capital, among the political elite, there was controversy. Some advisors warned Ibrahim that marrying a former Western spy would damage his credibility. Ibrahim's response was characteristically direct. At a press conference, he addressed the issue head-on. "Yes, Claire Donovan was sent here as an intelligence operative. Yes, she was initially my enemy. But she chose conscience over orders. She chose truth over lies. She has spent years proving her commitment to our people and our cause. If you judge people only by their past mistakes, you deny them the possibility of redemption. If you cannot accept that enemies can become allies, that hatred can transform into love, then you've lost faith in humanity itself." The speech went viral. People across the nation and across the world debated it. Some called Ibrahim naive. Others called him inspirational. But what mattered to Claire was that he had stood publicly by her side, refusing to hide their relationship or apologize for it. 6 months later, they were married in a simple ceremony in the village. The same elderly woman whose husband had died in the attack blessed the union. The children Claire taught performed a traditional dance. Ibrahim's mother, who had initially been skeptical of Claire, embraced her and called her daughter. It was, Claire thought, the happiest day of her life. She had come to this land as a liar and a spy. She had been reborn as a healer and a teacher. And now she was becoming a wife and perhaps someday a mother to children not of her own body, but of her own choosing. The orphans and vulnerable children of the community she now served. But happiness, Claire had learned, is always vulnerable to those who deal in violence. 3 years into their marriage, during a medical outreach trip to a remote region, Claire's convoy was ambushed. It wasn't a random attack. Intelligence later revealed it was a coordinated strike by a coalition of groups, mercenaries, corrupt officials, and remnants of the intelligence networks that had never forgiven her betrayal. Ibrahim was in the capital when he received the news. His face went white. "Where is she?" Is she alive? Unknown, sir, his security chief reported. The convoy was destroyed. 2 guards confirmed dead. 4 missing, including your wife. No bodies recovered yet. Ibrahim didn't wait for more information. He commandeered a helicopter and flew to the attack site himself against the advice of his entire security team. The scene was devastation. Burned vehicles, scattered supplies, blood on the ground. Ibrahim walked through the wreckage, his heart in his throat, searching for any sign of Claire. Then he heard it, a faint voice calling from the bush. Help! Someone! He ran toward the sound and found Claire, badly injured, half-conscious, but alive. She had been thrown clear of the explosion and had dragged herself into the vegetation to hide. Her leg was clearly broken, and she had lost significant blood from a head wound. Ibrahim, she whispered when she saw him. You shouldn't be here. Too dangerous. Quiet, he said gently, already calling for medical evacuation. You're going to be fine. I've got you. I've got you. As they waited for the medical helicopter, Claire gripped his hand tightly. They're never going to stop, are they? They'll keep coming until one of us is dead. Then we'll keep fighting, Ibrahim said fiercely. We'll keep living. We'll keep loving. That's how we win, by refusing to let them take away what matters. Claire spent 2 months recovering. During that time, Ibrahim barely left her side, conducting government business from her hospital room when necessary. The attack had been intended to break them, to prove that defying powerful interests came with an unbearable cost. Instead, it proved the opposite. Images of Ibrahim caring for his wounded wife, of their obvious devotion to each other, circulated globally. Their story, spy turned healer, president who protected his enemy turned love, captured imaginations. They became symbols of redemption, forgiveness, and the possibility of change. When Claire was finally strong enough to return to the village, the entire community turned out to welcome her home. Children waved flowers. Women sang traditional songs of celebration. Men who had once viewed her with suspicion now embraced her as family. Standing before them all, supported by crutches, Claire spoke from the heart. When I first came here, I was a weapon aimed at destroying what you've built. I was empty inside, trained to feel nothing, to manipulate everything. You took me in anyway. You gave me a chance to be better. You taught me what it means to be part of something larger than myself. I can never repay that gift. All I can do is spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. She paused, looking at the faces around her, faces she knew as well as her own now. And to those who attacked us, who think violence can break what we've built here, you're wrong. Every attack makes us stronger. Every attempt to divide us binds us closer together. You cannot destroy love with hatred. You cannot defeat truth with lies. We will keep standing. We will keep building. We will keep hoping. And we will win. The crowd erupted in cheers. Ibrahim, standing beside her, felt a surge of pride and love so powerful it almost hurt. This woman, who had once been sent to destroy him, had become his greatest strength. 10 years later, Claire sat in the garden of their home, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. She was 50 now, with strands of gray in her blonde hair. The limp from her injuries had never fully healed, but she wore it as a badge of honor. Around her, 5 children played. Orphans they had adopted over the years, each with their own story of loss and recovery. The oldest, a 14-year-old boy named Kwame, was helping his younger siblings climb a tree. Ibrahim emerged from the house, carrying 2 cups of tea. He had aged, too. More gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. But he still moved with purpose and strength. The UN delegation confirmed they're coming next month, he said, settling beside her. They want to document our reconciliation and community development programs. Claire smiled. Remember when they used to send delegations to investigate me as a security threat? Now they send them to study you as an example of successful reintegration. Ibrahim chuckled. How times change. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play, listening to their laughter. The clinic Claire had started now served 30 surrounding villages. The school had expanded to include secondary education. The community had become a model for others. "Do you think they'll ever stop trying?" Claire asked quietly. "The ones who still see us as enemies?" "Some will always hate what we represent," Ibrahim admitted. "Change threatens those who profit from the status quo. But look around." He gestured to the thriving community, the playing children, the peaceful evening. "We've already won. Not through violence, not through defeating them, but by building something better." Claire leaned against his shoulder. "I used to think redemption was about forgetting the past, about becoming someone completely different. But it's not, is it? It's about accepting who you were and choosing who you'll be. And you've chosen well," Ibrahim said softly. As darkness fell and stars began to emerge, they called the children inside for dinner. The house filled with noise and warmth. Arguments over whose turn it was to set the table, laughter at a joke Kwame told, the comfortable chaos of family life. Later, after the children were asleep, Claire stood at the window of their bedroom, looking out at the village lights twinkling in the darkness. "What are you thinking?" Ibrahim asked. "I'm thinking about that day in the forest, when you found me chained to that tree. If someone had told me then where I'd be now, married to you, mother to 5 children, part of this community, I would have thought them insane." "Fate has a strange sense of humor," Ibrahim agreed. "No," Claire said, turning to face him. "Not fate. Choice. You chose to free me when you could have walked away. You chose to trust me when I gave you every reason not to. You chose love when hatred would have been easier. That's not fate. That's courage." Ibrahim crossed the room and took her in his arms. "We chose each other. That's the only choice that mattered." In the years that followed, their story continued to inspire others, former enemies who found reconciliation, soldiers who laid down arms, communities that chose cooperation over conflict. The ripples of their choice spread far beyond what they could see. Claire never fully forgot her years as a spy. The skills remained, the memories lingered, but they had been transformed from weapons of destruction into tools of protection. She used her understanding of intelligence networks to help other governments root out corruption. She trained security forces in ethical practices. She counseled other defectors trying to find their way out of the shadows. And always, always, she returned home to the village that had given her a second chance at humanity. On her 60th birthday, the community threw a celebration. People came from across the nation to honor her, former enemies she had spied on. People she had once been ordered to harm, families she had helped heal, an elderly woman, the same who had blessed Claire and Ibrahim's wedding, stood to speak. "When this woman first came to us, some said we should turn her away. Some said she was dangerous. But our president, our Ibrahim, he saw something we didn't. He saw a soul in pain, searching for purpose. He gave her a chance. And look what happened. She didn't just find redemption. She gave it to others. She showed us all that the content of our hearts matters more than our history." Claire, tears streaming down her face, stood to respond. "I came here as a liar. You made me honest. I came as an enemy. You made me family. I came as a tool of darkness. You showed me light. Whatever good I've done, it's only because you refused to define me by my worst moments. You saw possibility when I saw only failure. You are my teachers. You are my saviors. You are my home." Ibrahim, watching his wife speak, felt the same surge of emotion he'd felt when he first freed her from those chains so many years ago. He had saved her body that day, but she had saved his soul, teaching him that mercy was not weakness, that forgiveness was not naive, that love could indeed transform even the deepest hatred. As the celebration continued into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling, Claire and Ibrahim slipped away to their quiet garden. They sat beneath the stars, hands intertwined, watching the lights of the village they had built together. "Do you have any regrets?" Claire asked, the same question they had asked each other years before, but now with the weight of a lifetime behind it. Ibrahim considered carefully. "I regret every life lost, every person hurt, every mistake made, But regret you? Never. You are proof that people can change. That hope is not foolish. That love can win. Claire smiled. We didn't just survive, did we? We actually won. We did, Ibrahim agreed. Not because we defeated every enemy or solved every problem. We won because we chose each other, chose this community, chose love over fear. And that victory can never be taken from us. They sat in silence as the music drifted on the night breeze, surrounded by the sounds of celebration, wrapped in the warmth of a love that had been born in the most unlikely place and had endured against all odds. Claire, the former spy who had come to destroy, had instead built a life of meaning and purpose. Ibrahim, the leader who had risked everything to save an enemy, had gained a partner who made him stronger. Their story would be told for generations, not as a fairy tale of perfect people, but as a testament to the transformative power of mercy, the strength of forgiveness, and the enduring truth that even in a world of shadows and violence, light can prevail. And in that garden, under those stars, in that moment of peace hard-won and dearly held, they were simply two people who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk together into the light. The end.